assembly video for the Ironheart Artisans wooden siege tower, designed for Kings of War, but could be used for any rank and flank fantasy game. It's for rank and flank because it's made for fitting the entire movement trays for figures in. So we're going to unpack the kit. Everything's pre-cut 100%, but the pieces sometimes get stuck in there. So I'm just using the blunt end of a paintbrush to just push the pieces out from the back that haven't popped free. Kind of setting all the piles up between the different levels, the sides, the ramps for the back and the ramp for the front, the trim pieces, the wheels, and the hubs. You're gonna see most of the little pieces just pop right out real quick. They're not too tough at all to get out. So the easiest way is to start with the ramps. Now the way the cuts work, since they're not exactly mirrored, they're going to have a slightly off edge. The important part is to make sure that the little stems that stick into the holders for the ramps align. If there's a lip at the opposite edge where it's supposed to look like rough wood, it just adds another texture that makes it easy to paint and to dry brush where the cut isn't the exact same, and it's really not supposed to be. So really just make sure you line up the pins that are going to stick into the sides there. Now this is with the old MDF we used, where it was a lot more smooth, and it'll take you can see me trying to align it up a little bit. The new MDF is very, very rough texture, has a little bit of a scorch on it from the cut, but it sticks together a lot easier. I'm using Loctite Professional Super Glue here. You can use wood glue if you prefer. Anything you want really works. I just prefer this stuff because it just makes the job happen real fast. So this is for the ramp that would hit the wall and come down. You'll know the difference because it has the holes in it for rope or chain, whatever you want to use to attach. And it's the same thing again. Make sure the pin sides aligned well, and don't worry too much about the other side. If there's a little lip, it's okay. It just adds a little bit of texture, just something else to add a little detail. The holes for your ramp, chain, and rope, you can open them up if you need to. Okay, so the bottom layer for the first floor will have that opening in the bottom, and then you'll have your wood grain on it, and it'll have the axles for the wheels to stick on. So you want to find the front of the siege tower as well as the first level up from the bottom floor. Now if you look at all the floors, they have the holes in them for the ladders, and they slowly get shorter in width, or depth rather. So the widest floor with a hole cut in it will go into the back of the front face, and you'll see it has tabs on the bottom to go into the bottom floor. So we're just gonna glue those floors on, then put a little glue on the tabs that are going to slide through the finished bottom floor and then into the bottom of the siege tower next. That'll be the layer with the axles on it. So you can put a little glue on the axles themselves and the pins, and then around the border, whereas there's an opening in the center, and that's just to save space on the cut. It doesn't really serve any purpose, but you don't want to put glue in the middle if it's not going to touch anything. So the pins from the front wall will kind of align it, and then you just align it up with your axles. Now we're going to go ahead and put the side on so that it aligns that floor to its right level. Now you're going to see in this video that I'm about to dry fit this just to make sure it's the right one, and then my screen for the detail is going to lock up, so I have to rip it back apart and start again. So we've got the other side on by accident, but anyway, it's the same thing. So after you get that side on, you're going to go ahead and put the next floor up. Make sure you put it on the right way, like that one, where the smooth edge is going over the front wall for that second floor. Now this is the floor where your troops would stand to then hit that ramp and hit the walls. You'll see on the sides of this where I had to rip it apart after that detail camera froze, and that's what those little dirty spots are. Before you put on the opposite side though, you want to put on the top floor, because the tabs will need to go in. You don't want to have to try to squeeze it in. So now we're going to put on the front top piece, Just putting a little glue around the slots, the tabs. Now I stacked up a few of the wheels underneath it to make it level because the axles stick out on the bottom when you have it on the side. If you put 4 of the wheels on top of each other, it makes it level. You're not pushing on it in a weird angle. So we're going to put the opposite side on now. This might be the side you're still working on if you start gluing together before we get to the point where I had to rip mine apart because of the frozen detail camera. Sorry about that. And it's important to get that front corner where the axle sits over and that little piece goes in first, and then work your way from there, as that's the tightest spot. The rest of it kind of just lines up pretty easy. It's not too many points to connect at all. Then after you have that connected, it'll sit flat. I like to check all my joints and square them up real nice and tight. And then we want to put on our trim pieces. Just dry fit it here. It's going to sit over the axles like that, and then it actually creates the holders for the 2 ramps. So you can glue the first side on with no worries about where your ramps are sitting. I'm pretty liberal with the super glue. Slot it down over those axles and then align it. And now again, if you want to flip it over to glue the other side on, you can use the wheels to stick, to keep one end up. But I'm going to do it while it's standing up. Now what I'll do is I'll take the ramp and make sure that it fits in the right place first. Just double check it that you have the right ones. The one with the holes goes on the front, the one without the holes goes on the back. And then I'm going to take one of the ladders and I'm just going to place it under after I glue that side on, because I think it's a little loose there. I want to put a little extra glue right there where the hinge is going to meet. And what I'll do is I'll take a ladder and stick it under it just to keep the pin for that back ramp off the ground as I put this other side on. Now we're going to go ahead and put the glue on the side, have the front ramp ready, because your pins are going to get trapped between the 2 finished edge pieces there, as well as the back one. So with one hand you'll hold the front ramp in place in the opposite side's slot. And then once it captures it, you can let it hang down and then just hold it in place, or use rubber bands. A lot of people like to use the rubber bands. They're using wood glue so that it can set up and hold it in place. And you can see that the front ramp is now trapped and loose, and the back ramp is now trapped and loose as well. Check alignment a little bit. Check the movement of the ramps. Good to go. And now we're going to work on the front face. So the front face has some trim pieces, and then there's also trim pieces for the inside of the top floor. So you want to find the ones that are the shortest 3, and those will be for the inside of the top floor. The other 4 will be for that front finish. So the widest one goes directly under the ramp there, and you can see that it's left blank where it goes. And then the other 3 fit in the blank spots there, covering up the tabs, and then the bottom, and then the top tabs as well. And now we're gonna flip it over, and there's 3 ladders. One is for the deepest level, which is the one that was where your troops would sit to run at the other wall, and the other 2 are shorter. And you're going to position those directly below the holes in the floor. So the tallest ladder will go below the hole on the top floor. I've seen people glue them together where they put the ladders above the hole in the floor instead. I was about to do right there. But remember to do it below the hole. And then the other two are the same size, and they just go on the two lower floors below it. Now they are designed purposely to look a little short so that, you know, there wouldn't be a rung right next to the floor. Now we're going to put in these. The two short ones go on the sides. The longest one goes against the back of the front face, and it goes end to end, so it has to go in first. Even though I might try to do it the other way. Now I just put it below the rough edges. There's no exact spot. Again, this is just a trim piece to add a little bit of detail to those flat, wide walls that have nothing on them. Okay, now we're going to just glue our wheels together. If you want to be really detailed, you can try to make it so that the two sides align. I lost my detail camera again. So you can't actually look at both sides of the wheel at the exact same time, so maybe it doesn't really matter, but sometimes I like to try to line them up. I want your glue to get all set up, and then just decide whether you want your wheels to roll or not. If you don't want your wheels to roll, gluing it together is super easy. Obviously, just glue them down and glue them to the tower itself. If you want the wheels to roll, carefully glue the hubs on, and then wipe off your excess and keep spinning the wheels until the glue sets up, or you can just glue them in solid. It depends on how much action you want in your toy. Now for the boarding ramp, you can use string or chain or whatever you prefer. In this situation, I'm going to use string, kite string. So I'm going to create a knot in the one end. You can set this up however you prefer. I like, I made the thing, so I like all the movement I can get out of it. So I'm going to use the kite string, create a knot that's going to be big enough that eventually it'll get glued inside to that hole on the boarding ramp itself, the gangway, whatever you want to call it. And then I'm just going to double check the length of it and get an idea about how much I'm going to need total. So just going to kind of stretch it out, eyeball it, mock up the length. Go there to there, across the back, a little bit extra for my knots. Cut it off or clip it if you're using chain. I like to put the loop in it because I find that it's easier to tie it off. I'll show you at the end to make it go through and around. If you just want to put it on, one side and then notch it back, it's up to you, however you prefer to do it. So now I like to check for level and then get my piece about the length I want. You could always just tie a knot around it there, but I wanted my knots to go in from the bottom and kind of get tucked away in the hole afterwards. So I'm going to tie a knot up there, get it big enough, I can get some glue on it, and then clip it. And what I'll do later is let the glue set up on the knot and then pull it tight up against the hole and then press it in so that the ledge is perfectly level. And then when I want the boarding ramp to be up, I can then close it and just pull on that loop on the back, and see, it's big enough to have an entire tray of large models. And that's, with the unit basing for Kings of War, but it's wide enough that you could actually fit a full movement tray with its lit in there as well for 25 by 25 square miles. And like I said, you can, with it doing it that way, you can pull it and then just wrap it off against some of the wood edges on the back to keep the ramp up, like that, or tie it up to the top. Really depends on how you want to do it. Thanks for watching.